Last Tuesday morning, I was reaching for my favorite coffee mug on the top shelf when it happened. My feet shifted beneath me. The world tilted, and for one terrifying second, I thought I was going down. I caught myself on the counter, heart pounding, hands shaking. But that moment changed everything for me, because I realized I've been making the same 8 deadly mistakes that doctors say affect 99% of women over 60. Yes, 99%. That's nearly every single one of us. But here's what gives me hope, and what should give you hope too. These are mysterious, age-related problems we can't control. They're specific, fixable mistakes. And when I say fixable, I mean some of them can be corrected today, right after you finish watching this video. I'm going to share with you the 8 most dangerous balance mistakes that are quietly stealing your independence. And more importantly, I'll show you exactly how to fix each one. Stay with me until the end, because mistake number 5 nearly sent me to the emergency room, and I guarantee you're probably making it right now, without even knowing it. You know that feeling when you stand up from your favorite chair, and you pause for just a split second? Maybe you steady yourself on the armrest, just in case. Or perhaps you've noticed that stepping off a curb requires a little more concentration than it used to. Most of us dismiss these moments. We tell ourselves, I'm just being careful, or I was distracted. But what if I told you these seemingly innocent moments are actually your body sending you urgent messages? I learned this the hard way 6 months ago. I was getting ready for my granddaughter's birthday party, rushing around the house, gathering presents and making sure everything was perfect. As I hurried down the hallway, I felt that familiar little wobble, that tiny moment of uncertainty. But instead of listening to my body, I pushed through. I'm fine, I told myself. I'm just excited about the party. 2 hours later at the party, I was walking across my daughter's deck when my foot caught on a slightly raised board. This time, I didn't catch myself. I went down hard, bruising my hip and scraping my palms. The embarrassment was almost worse than the pain. All those little warning signs I'd been ignoring suddenly made sense. My body had been trying to tell me something for weeks, maybe even months, and I hadn't been listening. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a balance specialist I spoke with after my fall, explained something that completely changed how I think about these early warning signs. She said, your balance system is like a smoke detector. It starts beeping long before there's a fire, but most people just remove the batteries instead of investigating the problem. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been removing the batteries. Here's what those early warning signs actually mean. When you feel unsteady getting up from a chair, it's often because your inner ear, your vision, and your muscles aren't communicating as efficiently as they once did. When you find yourself reaching for walls or furniture more often, it's because your proprioception, your body's sense of awareness in space, is starting to decline. When you feel dizzy after bending over to pick something up, it could be a blood pressure issue, an inner ear problem, or even dehydration. But here's the crucial part. Every single one of these warning signs can be addressed if you catch them early. The key is learning to recognize them as messages, not just random inconveniences. I started keeping what I call a wobble journal. Every time I felt unsteady, even slightly, I wrote it down. The time of day, what I was doing, how I was feeling, whether I'd eaten recently or taken any medications. After just 1 week, patterns started to emerge. I noticed I felt most unsteady in the mornings before breakfast and late in the afternoon when I was tired. I also realized that certain medications made me feel more off balance than others. This simple practice helped me and my doctor identify specific triggers and develop targeted solutions. The science behind these early warning signs is fascinating and empowering. Your balance system relies on 3 main components working together: your vision, your inner ear, and something called proprioception, which is your body's ability to sense its position in space. When we're young, these systems have lots of backup and redundancy. If one isn't working perfectly, the others compensate seamlessly. But as we age, each system becomes less reliable and the communication between them slows down. It's like having 3 people trying to carry a heavy piece of furniture together. If everyone is strong and coordinated, it's easy. But if one person starts to tire or loses their grip, the others have to work much harder to keep things stable. The good news is that you can strengthen all three systems with targeted exercises and lifestyle changes. For your vision, it's as simple as making sure your glasses prescription is current and your home is well lit. For your inner ear, there are specific head movements and exercises that can improve function. And for proprioception, balance exercises and strength training can make a remarkable difference. I want you to think about the last week. Have you had any of these moments? Standing up and feeling slightly dizzy, reaching for a wall or piece of furniture just in case, feeling less confident on stairs or uneven surfaces, needing a moment to steady yourself after bending over? If you answered yes to any of these, your body is talking to you, and the sooner you listen, the sooner you can take action. Here's my challenge for you. Starting today, pay attention to those little moments of uncertainty. Don't dismiss them. Don't push through them. Instead, acknowledge them as valuable information. Your body has carried you through decades of life, and it's still trying to protect you. The least we can do is listen. Because when you start paying attention to these early warning signs, you're not admitting weakness. You're demonstrating wisdom. You're taking the first step towards staying strong, independent, and safe for years to come. Let me tell you about my favorite pair of shoes. They were these gorgeous burgundy flats with a little bow on the front. I'd had them for nearly 8 years, and they went with everything. They were my go-to shoes for grocery shopping, doctor appointments, lunch with friends. I felt put together wearing them, confident and stylish. Until the day they nearly killed me. I was walking to the parking lot at my local pharmacy, mind focused on picking up my prescription, when my right foot slipped sideways on a patch of smooth concrete. The flat sole of my beloved shoes had absolutely no grip, and before I knew it, I was sliding like I was on ice. I managed to grab a nearby car to steady myself, but the shock of how quickly I'd lost control left me shaken for the rest of the day. That evening, I sat on my bed and really looked at those shoes for the first time in years. The soles were completely smooth, worn down to nothing. The fabric had stretched so much that my feet were actually sliding around inside them with every step. And that little heel, which I'd never thought much about, was just high enough to throw off my center of gravity without providing any real support. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a podiatrist who specializes in fall prevention, opened my eyes to something I'd never considered. She told me, the shoes you wear after 60 can literally be the difference between a normal day and a life-changing injury. Your feet are your foundation, and if your foundation is unstable, everything above it becomes compromised. Here's what happens to our feet as we age, and why our shoe choices become so critical. First, the fat pads on the bottom of our feet start to thin out. These natural cushions that protected us for decades gradually disappear, leaving our bones closer to the ground and more vulnerable to impact. Second, our arches begin to flatten, which changes how our weight is distributed across our feet. Third, the ligaments and tendons in our feet and ankles become less flexible, reducing our ability to quickly adjust when we encounter uneven surfaces. But it gets more complex. The nerve endings in our feet, which help us sense texture, temperature, and pressure, don't work as efficiently as they once did. This means we're getting less information about the ground beneath us, making it harder for our brains to make the tiny adjustments needed to keep us stable. When you combine these natural changes with shoes that don't provide proper support, grip, or stability, you're essentially asking your body to perform a balancing act with one hand tied behind its back. I learned about the shoe test from a physical therapist at my local senior center. She had me stand on one foot while wearing my old flats, then switch to a pair of proper walking shoes. The difference was astounding. In my flats, I wobbled and had to put my foot down within seconds. In the walking shoes, I could hold the position with confidence. The shoes weren't just covering my feet. They were actively helping my body maintain balance. So what makes a shoe truly supportive for women our age? First, the sole needs to have real grip. Not just texture, but actual tread that can grab onto smooth surfaces. I test all my shoes now by doing a little slide test on my kitchen tile. If the shoe slides easily, it's not safe for outdoor use. Second, the shoe needs to have structure around the heel and arch. Your foot should feel held in place, not loose or sloppy. Third, cushioning is essential, but it needs to be the right kind of cushioning. You want firm support that absorbs impact without making you feel like you're walking on marshmallows. Memory foam can be wonderful, but some types are too soft and actually make balance more difficult. Fourth, the fit must be precise. A shoe that's too big will cause your foot to slide around, creating instability. A shoe that's too small will cause pain and affect how you walk. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Many of us resist changing our shoe habits because we're afraid of looking like we're wearing old lady shoes. I get it. I felt the same way. But here's what I discovered. The shoe industry has completely transformed. There are now athletic shoes designed to look like dress shoes, walking shoes that could pass for fashionable boots, and even sandals with serious support systems built in. I spent an afternoon at a specialty shoe store that caters to mature women, and I was amazed by the options. I found a pair of shoes that looked like elegant loafers, but had the support system of a high-end walking shoe. They had a firm heel cup, arch support, and a sole with excellent grip. I could walk on wet leaves, smooth tile, even slightly uneven sidewalks without that constant worry about slipping. But the real game changer was understanding that different activities require different shoes. I now have specific shoes for different parts of my life. My kitchen shoes have extra grip for when I'm cooking and cleaning. My outdoor shoes have more rugged sole for walks and errands. My indoor shoes provide comfort and support for those long days at home. It might sound like a lot, but having the right shoe for each situation has given me back my confidence. Here's something else I learned that surprised me. The time of day you try on shoes matters. Your feet swell throughout the day, so shoes that fit perfectly in the morning might be too tight by afternoon. The best time to shop for shoes is late afternoon or early evening when your feet are at their largest. This ensures a proper fit when you're most likely to be wearing them. I also discovered the importance of replacing shoes regularly. Those beloved flats I mentioned, I'd been wearing them for 8 years. The support had completely broken down, even though they still looked decent on the outside. Now I replace my everyday shoes every 12 to 18 months, depending on how much I wear them. It seems like an expense, but when I compare it to the cost of potential fall, emergency room visit, or broken bone, it's actually an investment in my safety and independence. One more thing about shoes that I wish someone had told me sooner. Breaking in new shoes needs to happen gradually when you're over 60. Your feet don't adapt to changes as quickly as they used to. I now wear new shoes for just an hour or two at home for the first few days, gradually increasing the time until they feel completely comfortable. This prevents blisters, sore spots, and that unstable feeling that comes with unfamiliar footwear. The emotional impact of wearing proper shoes goes beyond just physical safety. When you know your shoes are giving you good support and grip, you walk differently. You stand taller. You feel more confident navigating curbs, steps, and uneven surfaces. You stop avoiding certain places or activities because you're worried about falling. In essence, the right shoes don't just protect your feet. They protect your freedom and your peace of mind. I used to think dehydration was something that happened to marathon runners or people working in the desert. I certainly never connected it to balance problems. That changed on a particularly warm afternoon last spring, when I learned just how dangerous this misconception could be. I'd spent the morning working in my garden, pulling weeds and watering my tomato plants. It was pleasant work, not strenuous, and I felt fine. Around noon, I came inside for lunch and decided to do a load of laundry. As I bent over to pull clothes from the washing machine, I suddenly felt the room spin. Not dramatically, just enough to make me grip the edge of the washer and wait for it to pass. I assumed I just moved too quickly, but as the afternoon went on, I felt increasingly unsteady. Walking to the mailbox required extra concentration. Standing up from my reading chair made me pause and hold on. By evening, I was genuinely concerned. Had I had a small stroke? Was something seriously wrong? It wasn't until my daughter called that evening and asked if I'd been drinking enough water in the heat that the pieces started falling into place. Water? I thought back through my day. A cup of coffee in the morning, a glass of iced tea with lunch, and that was it. In an entire day of activity in warm weather, I consumed maybe 16 ounces of actual hydrating fluids. No wonder I felt like I was walking on a boat deck. What I learned next from my doctor completely changed how I think about hydration and balance. Dr. Rebecca Santos, who specializes in geriatric medicine, explained that mild dehydration, the kind that develops gradually over hours or even days, is one of the most overlooked causes of dizziness and balance problems in older adults. And it's incredibly common because our bodies stop sending clear thirst signals as we age. Here's the science that shocked me. When you're even mildly dehydrated, your blood volume decreases. This means your heart has to work harder to pump blood to your brain, especially when you change positions. That dizzy feeling when you stand up too quickly, that's often dehydration talking. Your brain isn't getting a steady flow of oxygen-rich blood it needs to keep you oriented and stable. But it goes deeper than that. Dehydration also affects your inner ear, the organ responsible for balance and spatial orientation. The inner ear contains tiny crystals suspended in fluid, and when that fluid level drops due to dehydration, these crystals can't function properly. This can lead to vertigo, that spinning sensation that makes even simple movements feel dangerous. I also learned about something called orthostatic hypotension, which sounds fancy, but simply means your blood pressure drops when you stand up. This is much more common in dehydrated older adults and can cause sudden dizziness, lightheadedness, and yes, falls. The scary part is that you might not feel thirsty at all when this is happening. Dr. Santos shared a statistic that made me rethink everything. She said that up to 40% of emergency room visits by older adults for dizziness and falls can be traced back to dehydration. 40%. That means nearly half of these scary incidents could potentially be prevented by something as simple as drinking more water. But here's where it gets tricky for women our age. Many of us deliberately limit our fluid intake because we're worried about frequent bathroom trips, especially at night. I was guilty of this too. I'd stop drinking water after 6 p.m. because I didn't want to wake up multiple times during the night. What I didn't realize was that this strategy was actually making me less stable and more prone to falls, especially during those middle-of-the-night bathroom trips when balance is already more challenging. The solution isn't to flood your system with water all at once. That can actually be dangerous and uncomfortable. Instead, it's about steady, consistent hydration throughout the day. I learned to think of it like maintaining a houseplant. You don't dump a gallon of water on it once a week. You give it small amounts regularly to keep the soil consistently moist. My new hydration strategy starts the moment I wake up. I keep a large glass of water on my nightstand and drink it first thing, even before my morning coffee. This helps replenish what I've lost during sleep and gives my body a good head start. Throughout the day, I aim for small, frequent sips rather than trying to chug large amounts all at once. I discovered that the type of water matters too. Plain water is excellent, but sometimes adding a pinch of sea salt or a splash of electrolyte solution can help your body actually absorb and retain the fluids better. This is especially important if you're taking medications that can affect hydration, like blood pressure medications or diuretics. One game changer for me was learning about hidden hydration sources. Soups, herbal teas, and water-rich fruits like watermelon and oranges all contribute to your daily fluid intake. I started having a warm cup of herbal tea in the afternoon, not just for the comfort, but as part of my hydration plan. Bone broth became a regular part of my routine too, providing both hydration and nutrients that support overall health. I also learned to recognize the subtle signs of dehydration that I've been missing for years. Feeling tired in the afternoon, having a slight headache, noticing that my skin seemed less elastic when I pinched it, even feeling a bit foggy mentally. These weren't just normal parts of aging. They were often signs that I needed more fluids. The timing of hydration matters too. I learned that drinking a large glass of water about 30 minutes before standing for extended periods, like when cooking dinner or doing household chores, can help prevent that lightheaded feeling that sometimes comes with prolonged standing. And drinking a small amount of water before getting up in the middle of the night can help maintain better balance during those vulnerable nighttime hours. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that hydration isn't just about preventing falls. It's about improving your overall quality of life. When I'm properly hydrated, I have more energy, I think more clearly, my joints feel better, and I simply feel more like myself. The balance improvement was just one of many benefits. Now, I carry a beautiful water bottle with me everywhere. It has measurements on the side so I can track my intake, and I've made a goal to finish it twice during the day. On hot days or when I'm more active, I aim for 3 full bottles. The key is making it a habit, not a chore. If you're reading this and thinking about your own hydration habits, I encourage you to start paying attention. How much actual water are you drinking each day? Not coffee, not soda, but pure, hydrating fluids. If you're like I was, you might be surprised by how little it actually is. And if you've been experiencing any unexplained dizziness, balance issues, or that woozy feeling when you stand up, dehydration might be playing a bigger role than you realize. Walk through your home right now with me for a moment. Look around with fresh eyes, as if you were visiting for the first time. Do you see that decorative rug in the hallway? The extension cord running from the lamp to the wall outlet? The stack of magazines beside your favorite chair? I used to see these things as normal parts of my comfortable, lived-in home. Now I see them as potential disasters waiting to happen. My wake-up call came on what should have been a perfectly ordinary Thursday morning. I was carrying a basket of folded laundry from the bedroom to the linen closet. My arms were full, and I was focused on not dropping the towels I'd folded so carefully. As I rounded the corner into the hallway, my foot caught the edge of the throw rug I'd walked over thousands of times. The rug slipped, my balance shifted, and down I went, laundry flying everywhere. I lay there on the hallway floor, more shocked than hurt, staring up at the ceiling and realizing that my own home had just attacked me. That beautiful rug, which I'd chosen specifically because it added warmth and color to the space, had become a trap. And as I looked around from my position on the floor, I started noticing other hazards I'd been blind to for years. The reality is that most falls happen at home. According to National Safety Council, 8 out of 10 falls among older adults occur in familiar, indoor environments. We think of our homes as safe spaces, and they should be, but often the very things that make our homes feel comfortable and personal are the same things that can cause us to fall. After my hallway incident, I decided to do what professionals call a home safety audit. I walked through every room slowly, looking not for beauty or comfort, but for potential hazards. What I found was eye-opening and a little embarrassing. I had been living in what amounted to an obstacle course without realizing it. In the living room, I had a beautiful antique side table positioned right at the end of the sofa. I'd been walking around it for years, but I noticed that the path was actually quite narrow, especially when I was carrying something or moving quickly. The corners were sharp, and more than once I'd bumped my hip on it, without really thinking about it. The bathroom was even worse. I had a fluffy bath mat that looked lovely, but slipped every time I stepped on it. The shower had no grab bars, just smooth tile walls that offered nothing to hold on to if I lost my footing. The lighting was dim and atmospheric, perfect for relaxing baths, but terrible for safety, especially during those middle-of-the-night visits. In the kitchen, I kept my most frequently used items in the highest cabinets because I liked the way it looked with the counter clear, but this meant I was constantly reaching overhead, stretching and straining, often while standing on my tiptoes. I had a step stool, but it was tucked away in the pantry, so I rarely bothered to get it for quick tasks. The bedroom had its own set of hidden dangers. The path from the bed to the bathroom was cluttered with a small ottoman, a houseplant, and a reading lamp with a cord that stretched across the walking area. During the day, these obstacles were easy to navigate, but at night or in the early morning when I was still sleepy, they became serious hazards. Even my beloved kitchen had betrayed me. I had always been proud of my cooking, and my spice rack was a testament to years of culinary adventures. But it was positioned high above the stove, requiring me to reach over hot burners and stretch upward every time I wanted to season my food. The combination of heat, reaching, and balancing was a recipe for disaster that I'd somehow never recognized. The staircase, which I climbed thousands of times, had only one handrail, and it was on the left side going up. Since I'm right-handed, this meant I was always reaching across my body for support, which threw off my natural balance. The steps themselves were covered with a runner that had started to curl at the edges, creating tiny trip hazards that I'd unconsciously been stepping around for months. Making the changes wasn't as overwhelming as I'd feared. I started with the most dangerous areas first. I removed all loose rugs or secured them with heavy-duty carpet tape. In the bathroom, I installed grab bars next to the toilet and inside the shower. They weren't the institutional-looking bars I'd imagined. Modern grab bars come in stylish finishes that actually complement bathroom decor. I replaced a slippery bath mat with one that had suction cups on the bottom and added a non-slip strip inside the shower. I also upgraded the bathroom lighting with bright LED bulbs and added a motion sensor nightlight that turns on automatically when I enter the room. In the kitchen, I completely reorganized my storage system. Everything I use daily is now stored between waist and shoulder height. My spice rack moved to a convenient drawer, and I invested in a sturdy step stool with a handle that I keep easily accessible for the few times I need to reach higher shelves. The living room transformation was more subtle, but equally important. I rearranged furniture to create clear, wide pathways and move that antique side table to a spot where it adds beauty, without creating a navigation hazard. I also added a small lamp table next to my reading chair, so I always have something stable to hold on to when standing up. For the bedroom, I installed motion sensor lights that create a gentle path from the bed to the bathroom. The cord management was simple but effective. I used cord covers and hooks to keep all electrical cords against the walls and out of walking paths. I also moved the ottoman to the foot of the bed, where it's useful but not in the way. The most surprising change was the staircase. I had a second hand drill installed on the right side, which cost less than $200 but made an enormous difference in how confident I feel going up and down. I also replaced the old runner with individual stair treads that lie flat and provide excellent grip. These changes didn't happen overnight, and they didn't cost a fortune. I spread them out over several months, tackling one area at a time. The total investment was less than what I might spend on a nice vacation, but the return on investment is immeasurable. I sleep better knowing my home is working with me, not against me. The emotional impact has been just as significant as the physical safety improvements. I no longer feel like I'm navigating a minefield in my own home. I move through my space with confidence, especially during those vulnerable early morning and late evening hours. My home feels like a sanctuary again, not a source of constant low-level anxiety. 3 months ago, I woke up and the world was spinning. Not dramatically, not like in the movies, but enough that I had to sit on the edge of my bed for several minutes before I trusted myself to stand. I assumed I'd just gotten up too quickly. But as the days went on, I noticed more subtle signs that something wasn't quite right with my balance system. Turning my head quickly to look over my shoulder made me feel momentarily disoriented. Walking in the dark, even in my familiar bedroom, felt more challenging than it should have. And when I closed my eyes during my evening prayers, I found myself swaying slightly, something that had never happened before. I was experiencing the effects of inner ear dysfunction, and I didn't even know it. The inner ear is something most of us never think about until something goes wrong. I certainly didn't understand its crucial role in balance until I met with Dr. Amanda Chun, an audiologist who specializes in balance disorders. She explained that the inner ear is like the command center for your body's balance system, containing tiny structures that detect every movement of your head and send signals to your brain about your position in space. Inside your inner ear are 3 small, fluid-filled tubes called semicircular canals. Each one is positioned at a different angle, and they work together to sense rotation and movement in all directions. When you turn your head, nod yes, or shake no, these canals detect the movement and instantly tell your brain what's happening. Your brain then coordinates with your eyes and muscles to keep you stable and oriented. There's also a structure called the vestibule, which contains tiny calcium crystals suspended in gel. These crystals detect linear movement and help you sense when you're moving forward, backward, or side to side. When everything is working properly, this system operates seamlessly in the background, making thousands of tiny adjustments every day to keep you balanced and oriented. But as we age, several things can go wrong with this delicate system. The fluid in the inner ear can become thicker or develop deposits. Those tiny crystals can become dislodged and float into the wrong areas, causing a condition called BPV, or benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. The sensitive hair cells that detect movement can become damaged or less responsive. And the nerve pathways that carry balance information to the brain can slow down. What makes inner ear problems particularly dangerous for balance is that they often develop gradually. You might not notice dramatic symptoms, just a subtle increase in unsteadiness, mild dizziness when you change positions, or a general feeling that you're not quite as steady as you used to be. These symptoms are easy to dismiss as normal aging, but they're actually warning signs that your balance system needs attention. I learned about something called visual dependency, which explained a lot of my recent experiences. When your inner ear isn't working perfectly, your brain starts relying more heavily on your vision for balance information. This means you feel much less stable in the dark, or when your visual environment is confusing or cluttered. That explains why I've been feeling more unsteady during my evening walks and why navigating my dark bedroom have become more challenging. The good news is that there are specific exercises and treatments that can dramatically improve inner ear function. I started with something called the Epley maneuver, a series of head movements that help reposition those loose crystals I mentioned. It sounds technical, but it's actually quite simple and can be done at home. My doctor showed me how to do it properly, and I was amazed by how much better I felt after just a few sessions. I also learned about gaze stabilization exercises, which help retrain your brain to process visual and balance information more effectively. One exercise involves focusing on a stationary object while slowly moving your head side to side. Another involves tracking a moving object with your eyes while keeping your head still. These exercises help strengthen the connection between your inner ear, your vision, and your brain's balance processing center. Balance retraining exercises became part of my daily routine. I started with simple head movements, slowly turning my head left and right, up and down, while standing in a safe location with something to hold on to if needed. I practiced standing with my feet together, then with one foot in front of the other. I even learned to safely practice standing on one foot, which dramatically improved my overall stability. What surprised me most was learning about the connection between inner ear health and overall wellness. Dr. Chen explained that certain medications, including some common antibiotics and pain relievers, can be toxic to inner ear structures. High blood pressure, diabetes, and even stress can affect inner ear function. This meant that taking care of my inner ear wasn't just about balance exercises. It was about taking care of my whole body. I made several lifestyle changes that supported my inner ear health. I learned that excessive salt can cause fluid retention in the inner ear, leading to increased pressure and balance problems. So I started reading labels more carefully and cooking with herbs and spices instead of relying on salt for flavor. I also discovered that caffeine and alcohol can affect inner ear function, so I moderated my consumption of both. Sleep position became important too. I learned that sleeping with my head slightly elevated can help reduce inner ear pressure and improve drainage. I added an extra pillow and found that I woke up feeling less dizzy and more balanced. I also started sleeping on my back more often, as side sleeping can sometimes worsen certain types of inner ear problems. Stress management, something I'd never connected to balance, became crucial. Dr. Chen explained that chronic stress can affect the delicate chemical balance in the inner ear and make existing problems worse. I started incorporating gentle stress reduction techniques into my daily routine. Deep breathing exercises, short meditation sessions, and regular walks in nature. The improvement didn't happen overnight, but it was steady and noticeable. Within a few weeks of starting the exercises and making these lifestyle adjustments, I felt more stable when turning my head quickly. The spinning sensation when I first woke up disappeared. Most importantly, I regained confidence in my body's ability to keep me balanced and upright. I also learned the importance of protecting my inner ear from further damage. This meant being careful about loud noises, which can damage the delicate structures inside the ear. I started wearing ear protection when using loud appliances like the vacuum or blender. I also became more aware of medications that could affect my inner ear and made sure to discuss any balance-related side effects with my doctor. One of the most valuable things I learned was when to seek professional help. While many inner ear issues can be improved with exercises and lifestyle changes, some require medical intervention. If you experience sudden severe dizziness, hearing loss, or balance problems that don't improve with basic measures, it's important to see a healthcare provider who specializes in balance disorders. The emotional impact of addressing my inner ear health has been profound. I no longer feel like my body is betraying me with unexpected dizzy spells or balance problems. I understand that my inner ear, like any other part of my body, needs care and attention to function well. And I've learned that taking proactive steps to protect and improve the system isn't just about preventing falls. It's about maintaining the sense of confidence and control that makes life enjoyable at any age. This is a mistake that literally knocked me to the ground and taught me a lesson I'll never forget. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was running late for a doctor's appointment. My husband was waiting in the car, the engine running, and I could hear that subtle impatience in his voice when he called out, "Helen, we really need to go." I was in the bedroom, grabbing my purse and trying to remember where I'd put my reading glasses. In my hurry, I spun around quickly to check the dresser, then pivoted fast toward the closet, then rushed toward the bedroom door. My brain was 3 steps ahead of my body, focused on everything I needed to remember for the appointment. That's when it happened. As I stepped into the hallway, still moving at that urgent pace, my left foot landed slightly off-center, instead of the controlled, mindful step that would have automatically corrected this minor misstep. I was moving too fast for my balance system to respond. My body couldn't make the tiny adjustments needed to stay upright. I went down hard, landing on my shoulder and scraping my elbow on the wall. The physical pain was nothing compared to realization that hit me as I sat there on the hallway floor. I had been rushing through my life for months, maybe even years, without considering how this constant hurry was affecting my body's ability to keep me safe. I wasn't just late for a doctor's appointment. I was out of sync with my own physical capabilities. Dr. Michael Torres, a physical therapist who specializes in fall prevention, later explained to me what had happened from a scientific perspective. He said that our balance system, especially as we age, relies heavily on something called postural control. This is our body's ability to make tiny, unconscious adjustments to keep us stable as we move through space. When we're young, these adjustments happen almost instantly. Our reflexes are quick, our muscles respond rapidly, and our brains process balance information at lightning speed. But as we age, each part of the system slows down just slightly. The signals from our feet to our brain take a fraction of a second longer. Our muscles need a tiny bit more time to respond. Our reflexes aren't quite as sharp. This slight slowing isn't a problem when we're moving mindfully and deliberately. Our bodies have time to process information and make adjustments. But when we rush, when we move faster than our balance system can keep up with, we create a dangerous mismatch between our intentions and our physical capabilities. I realized I've been making this mistake in dozens of small ways every day. Hurrying up the stairs because I heard the phone ringing. Rushing across the kitchen because something was boiling over on the stove. Quickly turning around because I'd forgotten something in another room. Each time, I was asking my body to move faster than my balance system could safely manage. Dr. Torres introduced me to the concept of mindful movement, which has completely transformed how I navigate through life. Mindful movement isn't about moving slowly all the time. It's about moving intentionally with awareness of your body and your environment. It's about giving your balance system the time it needs to keep you safe. I started practicing what I call purposeful pausing. Before I stand up from a chair, I take a breath and let my body prepare for the position change. Before I turn around, I plant my feet firmly and make the movement deliberately. Before I walk across a room, I take a moment to scan the path ahead and notice any potential obstacles. This wasn't about becoming overly cautious or fearful. It was about respecting the reality of how my body works now and working with it instead of against it. I learned to build extra time into my daily routine, so I wouldn't feel pressure to rush. If I needed to be somewhere at 2 p.m., I started preparing to leave by 1:30, giving myself buffer time for mindful movement. The practice of mindful movement extends beyond just preventing falls. I discovered that when I moved more intentionally, I actually felt more graceful and confident. I wasn't constantly bracing myself or feeling anxious about the next step. I began to trust my body again because I was giving it the conditions it needed to succeed. I also learned about something called dual tasking, which explained another pattern I'd noticed. Whenever I was distracted, talking on the phone while walking, thinking about my grocery list while navigating stairs, worried about an upcoming appointment while moving to the house. I felt less stable. Dr. Torres explained that our brains have limited processing power, and when we're focused on mental tasks, less attention is available for balance and movement. This led me to develop what I call single-tasking movement. When I'm walking, especially on stairs or uneven surfaces, I focus only on walking. I save the phone calls, the mental planning, and the problem solving for when I'm safely seated. This simple change has made an enormous difference in how stable and confident I feel. I started incorporating balance challenges into my daily routine, but always mindfully and safely. While brushing my teeth, I practice standing on one foot, using the bathroom counter for support if needed. While waiting for my coffee to brew, I practice walking heel to toe across the kitchen floor. These aren't rushed exercises. They're mindful practices that help maintain and improve my balance system. The emotional component of mindful movement has been just as important as the physical benefits. When I rush, I feel anxious and scattered. When I move mindfully, I feel calm and in control. This sense of control translates into every other area of my life. I feel more present in conversations, more focused on tasks, and more connected to my own body and its capabilities. I've also learned to recognize the difference between healthy urgency and dangerous rushing. If there's a true emergency, of course I move quickly, but I've learned to question whether most situations really require the kind of hurried movement that puts me at risk. Usually, an extra 30 seconds of careful movement won't make any meaningful difference in the outcome, but it can make all the difference in my safety. Now, when I feel that familiar urge to rush, I pause and ask myself, is this urgency real or is it just habit? Most of the time, it's just habit, and habits can be changed. The key is replacing the habit of rushing with the habit of mindful movement. It takes practice, but like any skill, it becomes more natural over time. I never thought much about my feet until they started failing me. For 72 years, they carried me everywhere I needed to go without complaint. They'd walk me down the aisle at my wedding, chased after my children in the backyard, and stood by me through countless hours of cooking, cleaning, and living. I took them completely for granted until the day I couldn't ignore them anymore. It started with what I thought was just normal aging discomfort. My feet would ache after a day of walking or standing. I'd notice some stiffness in the mornings that would work itself out after a few steps. Nothing dramatic, nothing that seemed worth mentioning to my doctor. Just the usual wear and tear of a life well lived, or so I thought. But then I began to notice that my balance felt different. I wasn't as steady on uneven surfaces. I found myself being more cautious on stairs, holding the railing tighter than I used to. When I walked on grass or gravel, I felt uncertain, like I couldn't trust my feet to tell me what was underneath them. I blamed everything else, my shoes, my glasses, even my age, but I never considered that my feet themselves might be the problem. The truth hit me during a routine visit to a podiatrist for what I thought was just a minor corn issue. Dr. Patricia Yamamoto took one look at my feet and asked, "When was the last time you really examined your feet?" I was embarrassed to admit that I couldn't remember. She explained that foot health and balance are intimately connected, and that many balance problems in older adults start from the ground up. Here's what I learned about how our feet change as we age, and why these changes can dramatically affect our balance. First, the fat pads on the bottom of our feet, which act as natural shock absorbers, gradually thin out. This means we feel every bump, texture, and irregularity in the ground much more directly. Our feet become less able to adapt to uneven surfaces, making us more prone to rolling an ankle or losing our footing. Second, the muscles in our feet and lower legs weaken over time. These muscles are constantly making tiny adjustments to keep us balanced, but when they're weak or tight, they can't respond quickly enough to prevent a stumble from becoming a fall. The arch of the foot can flatten, changing how weight is distributed and affecting our overall stability. Third, and this was news to me, the nerve endings in our feet become less sensitive with age. This condition, called peripheral neuropathy, means we receive less detailed information about what we're walking on. We might not feel that small stone under our foot or notice that the ground has changed from concrete to grass. This reduced sensory input makes it much harder for our brains to make the quick balance adjustments that keep us upright. Dr. Yamamoto introduced me to something she called foot awareness exercises, and I was skeptical at first. How could simple exercises involving my feet make such a difference? But she was right. She had me sit in a chair and place a towel on the floor in front of me. Using only my toes, I had to scrunch the towel toward me, then spread it back out. It was harder than it sounds, and it made me realize how weak the small muscles in my feet had become. We also did balance exercises that focused specifically on foot sensation. I practiced standing on different textures, a firm surface, then a soft pillow, then a bumpy mat. With my eyes closed, I tried to identify which surface I was standing on just by feel. At first, it was nearly impossible. My feet weren't sending clear signals to my brain about what they were experiencing. But with practice, my foot sensitivity began to improve. The foot care routine I developed has become one of the most important parts of my day. Every evening, I spend 10 minutes examining and caring for my feet. I check for any cuts, bruises, or changes in color or temperature. I look for calluses or corns that might be affecting how I walk. I gently massage my feet and ankles to improve circulation and flexibility. I learned the importance of proper nail care too. Ingrown toenails or nails that are too long can change how you walk, forcing you to shift your weight in ways that affect your balance. I now trim my nails regularly and see a podiatrist every few months for professional care. It's not vanity, it's safety. Foot exercises became part of my morning routine. I do ankle circles, calf raises, and toe flexing while I'm having my morning coffee. I practice picking up small objects with my toes, marbles, pencils, even socks. These exercises help maintain strength and dexterity in the small muscles that are so crucial for balance. I also discover the importance of proper foot positioning and alignment. Many of us develop habits of standing or walking in ways that put extra stress on certain parts of our feet. I learned to distribute my weight evenly across both feet when standing and to pay attention to how my feet hit the ground when walking. Good foot alignment supports good overall posture, which in turn supports better balance. Temperature awareness became important too. I learned that cold feet can reduce sensation and make balance more difficult. I started wearing warm socks even in mild weather and found that keeping my feet warm improved my overall stability. I also learned to be extra cautious when walking from warm indoor spaces to cold outdoor areas, as the temperature change can temporarily affect foot sensation. The connection between foot health and confidence surprised me. When my feet felt strong and stable, I walked taller and moved with more assurance. When they ached or felt unreliable, I became hesitant and uncertain. This created a cycle where poor foot health led to reduced activity, which led to further weakening of the feet and legs, which led to even worse balance problems. Breaking this cycle required commitment to daily foot care and exercise, but the results were worth it. My feet became more flexible, stronger, and more sensitive to the ground beneath them. I could feel the difference between walking on carpet versus hardwood, grass versus concrete. This improved sensory input helped my brain make better balanced decisions throughout the day. I started wearing compression socks during long periods of standing or walking. These aren't the thick, medical-looking socks I'd imagined. Modern compression socks come in attractive styles and colors. They improve circulation in the feet and legs, reduce swelling, and help maintain better sensation throughout the day. Perhaps most importantly, I learned to listen to my feet. When they felt tired or sore, I rested them. When they felt stiff, I did gentle stretching exercises. When they felt cold or numb, I warmed them up and checked with my doctor if the problem persisted. My feet had been trying to communicate with me for years. I just hadn't been paying attention. The transformation in my balance and confidence has been remarkable. I no longer avoid walking on uneven surfaces or worry constantly about my footing. I can navigate my home confidently, even in the dark, because my feet are sending clear, reliable information to my brain about what I'm walking on. Taking care of my feet isn't just about comfort anymore. It's about maintaining my independence and safety for years to come. The most dangerous mistake I made wasn't physical at all. It was mental, and it nearly cost me everything I valued about my independence. After my first serious stumble, I did something that seemed perfectly logical at the time. I started avoiding anything that felt risky. No more evening walks. No more stairs unless absolutely necessary. No more reaching for high shelves. I thought I was being smart and cautious. In reality, I was falling into what doctors call the fear avoidance cycle, and it was making my balance problems exponentially worse. It began innocently enough. After that fall on my daughter's deck, I started second-guessing myself. Before stepping off a curb, I'd hesitate. Before walking across a parking lot, I'd look for the smoothest, most direct path. Before going up or down stairs, I'd grip the railing tightly and move one careful step at a time. I told myself I was just being sensible, but deep down, I was becoming afraid of my own body. The fear was subtle at first. I'd find excuses to skip my weekly coffee date with my friend Margaret because it meant walking across the restaurant's tile floor, which suddenly seemed treacherous. I stopped volunteering at the library because it required navigating between tall bookshelves and climbing a small step stool to reach certain books. I even avoided visiting my neighbor because her front steps had no railing, and the thought of walking up them made my heart race. What I didn't realize was that each activity I avoided made the next one seem more dangerous. It's like being afraid of driving after a minor fender bender. The longer you wait to get back behind the wheel, the more terrifying it becomes. Except in this case, the car was my own body, and avoiding movement was actually making me less capable, not safer. Dr. Lisa Chun, a geriatric psychologist, explained to me what was happening in my brain during this period. She said that fear of falling creates a stress response that actually makes falling more likely. When we're afraid, our muscles tense up, our breathing becomes shallow, and our movements become rigid and unnatural. All of these changes make us less stable, not more stable. Fear also affects our confidence in ways that become self-fulfilling prophecies. When you approach a set of stairs thinking, I might fall, your body responds to that expectation. Your muscles tighten, your gait becomes unsteady, and you actually increase your risk of the very thing you're trying to avoid. I was literally thinking myself into balance problems. The turning point came when my granddaughter invited me to her school play. It was being held in the school auditorium, which meant stadium-style seating with no center aisle. To get to our seats, I would need to walk across the front of the auditorium, climb several steps, and then navigate across a row of seats while other people watched. 6 months earlier, this wouldn't have been a problem, but in my current state of fear-driven avoidance, it seemed impossible. I almost didn't go. I almost missed one of the most important events in my granddaughter's young life because I was afraid of walking across a room and up some stairs. That's when I realized my fear had grown bigger than my love, and that wasn't acceptable. I decided I needed help, not just with my balance, but with my fear. Working with Dr. Chun, I learned about something called graded exposure therapy. This is a technique where you gradually, safely re-expose yourself to the activities you've been avoiding, starting with the least threatening and working your way up to more challenging situations. The key is building confidence through successful experiences rather than trying to overcome fear through willpower alone. We started with something simple, walking across my living room without holding on to furniture. Dr. Chun was there to spot me, and I had a clear path with nothing to trip over. It sounds silly, but that first independent walk across my own living room felt like a major victory. We practiced this for several sessions until I could do it without thinking about it. Next, we progressed to walking outside on my own sidewalk, then on slightly uneven surfaces like grass, then on gentle slopes. Each step was carefully planned to be challenging enough to build confidence, but not so difficult as to trigger the fear response. Throughout this process, I learned specific techniques for managing anxiety and building body awareness. One technique that particularly helped me was called body scanning. Before attempting any movement that made me nervous, I would take a moment to mentally check in with different parts of my body. How did my feet feel? Were my legs steady? Was I holding tension anywhere? This practice helped me distinguish between actual physical limitations and fear-based anxiety. I also learned breathing techniques specifically designed for movement anxiety. Dr. Chin taught me to use my breath as an anchor, taking slow, deep breaths before and during challenging movements. This helped activate my parasympathetic nervous system, the part that promotes calm and relaxation, counteracting the fight or flight response that fear creates. Another crucial element was learning to reframe my internal dialogue. Instead of thinking, I might fall, I practiced thinking, I am moving carefully and confidently. Instead of this is dangerous, I would think, this is challenging, and I am capable of handling challenges. It sounds simple, but changing these automatic thought patterns made a huge difference in how my body responded to movement. The role of social support became incredibly important during this process. I told my family and close friends what I was working on, and they became my cheerleading squad. My daughter started taking walks with me, not because I needed supervision, but because having company made the activity more enjoyable and less focused on fear. My neighbor began joining me for short outings to gradually rebuild my confidence in different environments. I learned to celebrate small victories instead of focusing on remaining limitations. The first time I walked up a flight of stairs without gripping the railing with white knuckles, I felt like I climbed Mount Everest. The first time I walked across a restaurant without mapping out every step in advance, I felt triumphant. These moments of success began to outweigh the memories of falls and near misses. Physical preparation became part of confidence building too. I started doing specific balance exercises, not just to improve my physical stability, but to prove to myself that my body was capable and reliable. When I could stand on one foot for 30 seconds or walk heel to toe across my bedroom, I had concrete evidence that my body was strong and functional. I also learned the importance of having a backup plan without letting it become a crutch. I started carrying a small, lightweight cane in my purse, not because I needed it every day, but because knowing it was there if I needed it reduced my anxiety about unfamiliar environments. Sometimes just having that safety net available was enough to allow me to move confidently without actually using it. The gradual return of my confidence had effects I hadn't expected. I started sleeping better because I wasn't lying awake worrying about potential falls. I became more social because I wasn't constantly making excuses to avoid activities. I even started trying new things again, like a gentle yoga class at the senior center, because I trusted my body to handle new challenges. Looking back, I realized that fear of falling had become more limiting than any actual physical problem I had. Yes, my balance had changed as I aged, but my fear had magnified these changes into something much larger and more threatening than they actually were. By addressing the fear alongside the physical aspect of balance, I was able to reclaim not just my stability, but my enjoyment of life. The most important lesson I learned is that confidence and balance support each other in an upward spiral. When you feel confident, you move more naturally and efficiently, which improves your actual balance. When your balance improves, you feel more confident, which leads to better movement patterns. Breaking into this positive cycle requires courage, but once you're in it, each improvement makes the next one easier. If you've been avoiding activities you once enjoyed because of balance concerns, I want you to know that there's a path back to confidence. It doesn't require ignoring your limitations or taking foolish risks. It requires gradually, safely reclaiming your capabilities with proper support and preparation. Your body may have changed, but it's still capable of so much more than fear will let you believe. These 8 mistakes I've shared with you aren't just medical facts or statistics. They're real challenges that I've lived through, stumbled over, and ultimately overcome. Every woman watching this video has the power to make these changes, starting today. You don't need special equipment, expensive treatments, or dramatic lifestyle overhauls. You need awareness, intention, and the willingness to invest in your own safety and independence. I want you to pick just one of these 8 mistakes and commit to addressing it this week. Maybe it's scheduling that overdue eye exam, or finally buying those supportive shoes you've been putting off, or simply drinking an extra glass of water each day. Small changes create big results when it comes to balance and confidence. Which mistake resonated most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. If this video helped you feel more empowered about your balance and safety, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more practical guidance on living your best life after 60. Remember, you're not getting older, you're getting wiser. And wisdom includes knowing how to stay strong, steady, and unstoppable.